We're live.
Thank you all for being with us till now. We are on the last plenary of today, and the topic is building an inclusive digital civilization with the lessons of the past. I want to swiftly pass the microphone to the moderator of the day, Maria Ida Palmieri, who will also introduce our speakers. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Robert, and welcome to the final session of today. We have been hearing a lot about the topic of the Social Business Day today, about creating this new civilization. And in the session of now with our speakers here, we're going to discuss a bit more about how do we create an inclusive digital civilization. But without further ado, let me introduce you very quickly the speakers, and thank you so much for waiting. We apologize, we're running a bit late, but I'm sure the session is going to be very interesting. So at the Grameen Creative Lab, we have been working with Tech for Good, and we have been in touch with each of the speakers today. We have here Alap Tatwawadi. He is the head of the strategy and growth for the Next Billion Users team at Google. So we're going to hear the perspective from a big company. And Halab has been working extensively also with Vanessa Reye, joining from the US or Mexico. I don't remember where you're joining from, but Alap is from Singapore. Thank you for also staying in the line so late. Vanessa, she is the Chief Strategy Officer at StreamSpot Plus by Buffalo Grid, and she has been dealing extensively with bringing reducing the digital divide and really increases access to digitalization in the global south. And she just launched her project in Bangladesh, so we're looking forward to hear more about it. And Diana Mandewo, we came across Diana in the Kofi Annan Innovation for Africa together, that we are co-working on together with the Austrian government, the Kofi Annan Foundation. And Diana is the communication director for Vaxi Global, a social enterprise and social business that is using biometric verification to authenticate vaccine records in Africa, but you're also a medical doctor. So you're going to bring more the perspective of from the health side. Without further ado, I would jump directly into the topic, and Alap, I would give you the word to describe what are these next billion users and how can we decrease the digital divide and address the next billion users, and what companies like Google are doing for this.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. Hi, folks. It's great to be here. My name is Alap, and I work at the Next Billion Users team at Google in Singapore. At the Next Billion Users team, our objective is to help accelerate Google's mission to build for everyone, everywhere. In the past 5 years, over 1 billion new users have come online, mostly from emerging markets like Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Now, these users cut across demographics and income groups and have been offline, previously either due to lack of infrastructure or internet access or devices. The online journey of these users has been very interesting and has been very different from the early adopters. And what we found is that it's often misunderstood. So in our efforts to keep up with their evolution and their adaptation to the online world, we at Google have spent a lot of time with them in the market. Over time, we've made a couple of top-line observations, right? And the first is that these next billion users aren't necessarily new to the internet. And this is quite significant because a label like new internet user, which implies that the amount of time you've spent online kind of determines your digital ability, it's actually a little misleading. So we shouldn't think of them as new internet users, but rather as novice internet users. And interestingly enough, the novice internet users' behavior transcends borders, even into the so-called developed markets. So you're as likely to find a novice internet user in Germany or UK as you are in Nigeria, right? Although, yeah, they still predominantly tend to come from parts of Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia, and India. Now, these users generally have low digital proficiency, they have low digital confidence, and they see low value of the internet to their life. And these barriers often mean that they do not see the internet as a useful way to advance their needs and aspirations. However, I say that with a bit of caution, right? Because a lot has changed in the last 2 years. When, because of COVID-related lockdowns, a lot of these users were almost forced to learn how to use technology and embark on an online journey. The second significant observation we've made is that demographics like age, gender, or location do not define the novice internet users as a group. They tend to behave differently from those who came online before them. And in many ways, it's a set of behavioral signals that defines them and not demographics. So when we're talking about these novice internet users, we should be thinking about their behaviors and not where they come from or their age or their gender. So aside from the obvious reasons like lack of connectivity, lack of infrastructure, lack of digital literacy, or affordability of devices or access to the internet, we found that there are a few rationalizers or factors that kind of determine the novice internet user's behavior online. Now, these factors include things like mobility, income, social expectations, community effects, and to a certain extent, impact on education. So let me build on these a little bit and also talk about how Google's addressing some of these, right? So the way things have evolved in the past 2 years, we're catering to a very different set of user expectations today than we were pre-COVID. Right. So over the last 4 or 5 years, barriers to connectivity had already been breaking down, with cheap data plans being available and almost sub $100 smartphones being available. So the older users or the older age group would have had access to internet, entertainment and information earlier. And at the same time, for example, parents would have thought 2 or 3 years back that, hey, spending time online is going to be detrimental for my child, right? Because that was the general belief that they're spending time online and not paying attention to the things that they should be doing, which is probably learning or just going out and playing very simple things, right? And we know that a lot of this has changed for obvious reasons. And a very new set of user expectations have evolved rapidly. So let's dig a bit deeper. So talking about income, a couple of years back, the main wage earner in the family would mostly be male. They would be making the financial decisions, including things like, hey, who owns the smartphone or who accesses the internet. In many cases, women did not have access to mobile phones or the internet. Now, during COVID, in a situation where the main wage earner's job may have been affected, they're certainly thinking about, hey, how can I generate income sitting at home, right? Which then extended to, well, are there skill sets with other family members that we can utilize to generate income and do it remotely, right? So now the whole family is looking for economic opportunities. Now, like many other companies, this is an area that Google's addressed very actively as well. We've developed a gig work platform called Taskmate, which is currently live in India, Kenya, and Mexico, where users can actually earn money in exchange for completing small tasks from the comfort of their homes, right? And these are simple tasks like annotating images or answering surveys or translating simple pieces of text. And tasks that anyone with access to $100 smartphone and the internet can perform easily. Now, that is the user view. From a business side of things, many SMBs, for example, did not know how to run their businesses online because forever they've been running their businesses offline, right? So now they're suddenly faced with the reality where they need to figure out how to bring their entire business operation online. So we invested in educating them on ways to connect with customers and users online. And we also added features to some of our products like Google My Business and Google Pay. I mean, the essential idea being, make it easy for a merchant to create a store and come online, give them access to easy online payment options, right? Now, education was another area that was affected in a big way with school shutting down in early 2020. So that's when Google Workspace for Education launched and updated a lot of our existing tools like Google Classroom to make remote learning easier. We also worked with telecom service providers, on-ground, training partners to bring under-resourced schools online, and also provide remote learning tools to students. And we also ran several initiatives where we interacted with like-minded folks outside Google to share our experiences. And in fact, that's where I connected with Vanessa and her colleagues at Buffalo Grid, and we continue to partner. So lastly, what I would want to say is that in addition to these things, Google's working, to enable the novice internet users' journey online and make it a lot simpler and a lot easier. We're focusing on a lot of simplified and assistive applications, and we're trying to break language barriers, right? This journey into the lives of the novice internet users has been a continuous learning curve for us. In terms of best practices, what we've seen is that approaching solutions from a user lens helps. It helps a lot. Spending time with these users in the market also helps understand, how the intersection of these users with technology is evolving. We're trying to do this to ensure that we're adapting our product development cycles to the users' changing needs. And like I said earlier, we also want to make sure that Google's mission rings true for everyone everywhere. So that's me, Maria.
Thank you, Alap. Thank you. And you brought the point of view of like a company like Google who is really going with scale there, but you do work a lot, as you mentioned, with like enterprises like the one of Vanessa, Buffalo Grid. So maybe I jump to you, Vanessa, and in particular, I wanted to ask you, because you're working really with a product going there and really providing access to digitalization for entertainment, for education as well, etc. I want to ask you, what is your lessons learned on this and the challenges that you faced, and maybe bringing your experience to Bangladesh if you already have some data to share.
That's actually very exciting. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. So yes, I think the greatest lesson learned, and I think it's very important to mention that for us, it's not really about the digital divide, but more about bringing digital prosperity. It's mind-boggling, or we really quite don't understand that if 3.8 billion of the people who have never experienced the internet before, 3.6 billion of them are in places where there's at least 3G coverage, then it's not a question of coverage. It's a question of access to connectivity. And that's precisely what we tackle at Buffalo Grid is the name of the company. The service is called StreamSpot Plus. What we do is we mitigate the cost of data. So our units, our hardware, the StreamSpots, have one SIM card installed in it. That SIM card connects the unit to the cloud, and it constantly is updating the content that is pre-selected and preloaded onto our units. We have 4 pillars of content that we focus on. Obviously, first and foremost is education, then health, then the entertainment and the sport is complementary. But the main focus is education. So if we go back to our deployment in Bangladesh, which is the project that is now live, we have everything from the national curriculum to the Khan Academy, Open University, Sesame workshop for the kids. You've got some coding courses based on cartoons for children, and the access to all of that is complementary, or we feel is a long-term planning of digital prosperity. What it does, it removes the main known barriers to access to connectivity, which one being affordability. Yes, of course, devices is one of the factors, but even in refugee camps in Africa, if you look at the numbers, in a lot of them, there's 50% accessibility to mobile devices, smartphone devices, whether primary or secondary access. So it's either borrowing, loaning, or their own one, or from the family itself. we're always looking at the access to digital education and initiatives. So in every demographic we go to, we work with grassroots communities and we work with academics on the ground, with our partners on the ground, to identify really what is the content that is best going to serve and support the sustainable development and education in the short, medium, and long term of the communities that we're serving. And basically what we're trying to do, or what we're doing, is we're really working closely with our communities. The lessons from Bangladesh are, it's more the demand and the enthusiasm about the product. You know, X amount of units were deployed, and on the first day, there was 100 people outside some of the mom and pop shops where the units were deployed. What is very interesting to see is that in the units, when they were deployed in India pre-COVID for trials, every single shop owner reported a 50% increase in revenue. Because if you think about it, in a little village or in a peri-urban area where you have similar shops, and one is offering free charge for your mobile device, plus free streaming of education content, or maybe the latest cricket match or whatever it might be, you're going to go to that shop. So a lot of these shop owners, or the custodians of the units that we give the units to, are reporting a dramatic increase in revenues. And we are focused, and we have made a pledge to deliver these units mostly to women-owned or women-run shops. The other interesting thing, which goes into our mobile network operator partners, is that we're observing a conversion rate. So we saw an 11% conversion rate from other mobile network operators pre-COVID in our trials in India. And we are observing, but we don't have the data or the strong data yet to back that up. But there is an observation that people want to go to the mobile network operator that's offering the free service. What does a unit do? One of our units is solar powered, runs with a SIM card connecting to the local mobile network, and it charges 10 phones at a time, so 10 devices at every single given time. It can be streaming 15 to 20 units plus downloading 15 units. So we're serving a lot of people simultaneously at any given time. It's a very exciting space. It's incredibly innovative. There really isn't anything like it. And from the mobile network operators are very positive. They've actually not even doing this from the CSR departments, but from their commercial departments. The partnerships are coming from, because of the potential of the future revenue and the future marketplace for them. But also from the shop owners, it's remarkable how they're so enthusiastic to host the hubs, to have the hubs. And also the reaction of the people. The videos and the photographs I saw when our founder and CEO, Daniel, was in Bangladesh for the first deployment were just heartwarming. You know, a little girl experiencing some mathematics classes that were a little bit cartoon based, and just her expression, her face was really, really exciting. And we're looking forward to our deployment in the next couple of months in refugee camps in Uganda, and pretty soon in Nigeria commercially. So there's a lot of learning to do, but in these first deployments, in this first month of a service being out there, it's incredibly promising and exciting from everybody's perspective.
Thank you, Vanessa. And it's great how you are talking about bringing digital prosperity and not always focusing about the digital divide. In this sense, I also connect to Diana. Diana, you are tackling digital prosperity with a focus on health as like a medical doctor in one of the biggest hospitals in Zimbabwe, and you really leverage that into Vaxi Global. So can you tell us more about your experience in increasing the access to connectivity and like this like empowerment that Vanessa was mentioning about, but more applied to the health sector in your case and in Africa, and what are the challenges that you're facing in your work and the opportunities as well?
Okay, thank you, Maria. I hope you can hear me. And I really liked what Vanessa talked about in regards to access, as well as what Alap talked about in terms of language. It's very unique to people, our languages that we bring. And sometimes it's often seen as illiteracy and misquoted, whereas it's just somebody's first language. So what we've learned as Vaxi Global, what we do is that we are linking biometrics to vaccine records. 80% of vaccine records in Africa are paper-based. So what that means is that essentially, Maria, you can say you're vaccinated and yet you're not. And you could literally get away with it if if you found the right piece of paper. It's also scary in the sense that sometimes mothers lose the vaccine records of their babies, and then they don't know what vaccine their baby got and what they didn't get. So you see reemergence of diseases like polio during the COVID-19 pandemic. So diseases that we've said as a world that we don't have anymore. We see them reemerging in patterns and in places where they've been affected by pandemics and climate disasters. So as Vaccine Global, what we've done is that we've tried to link biometrics, which are unique to a person, to their vaccine records. So then that helps it make sure that even when they don't have the paper records, if they are burnt or they're lost or they move, you still have that record as a country and as a nation. You can then have true coverage, vaccine coverage. The other thing is in Africa as well, we sometimes have mass vaccine programs instead of individualized vaccines. So what this means is that a donor might come and say, I'm going to give a vaccine for measles, and all under 5 kids get it at once. So then the next time the government has another measles vaccine program in the same area. So then that means there's a waste of resources as well. And we calculated that almost $80 million is lost in terms of having vaccines not properly registered. It also affects how non-governmental and governmental organizations tend to merge together in terms of health. So as a medical doctor, I've seen the use of technology, especially in poor resource settings, to make sure that the resources that are there are properly used and they are properly audited, and that vaccines and even health and telehealth options are available to the community. As Vaccine Global, we're looking into the future to then look into telemedicine at some point, to say that we in Zimbabwe, I work at the biggest hospital in Zimbabwe, so we have all the big specialists in the country at one hospital. But then that means that there's centralized care that is only accessible to the middle and upper income people. But you've got 60% of our population living in rural areas and last mile areas that are hard to reach. Telemedicine will ensure us to ensure that patients can get care even though they can't travel to main hospitals. So this means that patients can get at least a basic consult from a specialist whilst from their comfort of their own homes. And as we've seen with the current pandemic, we've seen that there's been a shift towards telemedicine even in the global north and higher income countries. I just wanted to also talk about the challenges that include language. For me, it's very important to say that if we're going to open up the digital sector and say we're bringing in the next billion users, then surely we should be able to also teach coding and stuff like that in languages that are indigenous to people. Does not necessarily mean that if people are struggling in Python, like I am, that they're dumb, but sometimes it's just a language barrier. The other thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of inclusivity, it's also targeting the global south, not necessarily as users, but to come in as people who also change the technology. For years, we've just suffered from the point of just being taught how to use this computer, how to use this phone, instead of being taught how to program it on our own. If I could just plug what Google has done in Ghana, they've opened the first AI learning center in Ghana, Accra, Ghana. And that's a big thing, and that's a big step. And that's what we're hoping to see as well as we go on to move from the labeling of us just as users of the system to creators, as well as leading the development of technology in Africa. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the issue of gender and how technology comes in. As Alap had talked about that, like as the world is developing, things like technology and tech jobs have opened up gender equality and gender inclusivity. And I think that's also like a big focus coming into Africa and the global south to say that let's include women in STEM careers, but for it to be a genuine effort and not just a token, not to just employ one person as a woman and then to fill a quota if it makes sense, but for it to be a genuine effort. The other thing that I've also seen is that when we do have people who are good in tech, they're usually employed by Google, but then they are moved to the global north, to the USA, to Canada and stuff like that, which is nice. But I'm saying, in as much as we invest there, it's also good to invest back here so that the brilliant minds that we have can also be back here and help the systems from which they come from. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Alap, do you have like a comment maybe to answer this last point that Diana was making?
No, I guess, it goes back to the point that eventually there's an effort to grow the ecosystem, right? So the tech ecosystem in general, not just in Africa, but in a lot of countries, right? So we're running multiple initiatives. So in India, we have an initiative called Internet Sathi, which is an effort to bring more women online. There are efforts even in countries like the US where, we found that there are a lot of kids who don't have access to learning tools. So the idea being that, digital literacy and digital inclusivity is a global objective. We're making different types of efforts in different parts of the world. Now, obviously, the investment in Ghana is something that Diana mentioned is a huge step forward. But then at the same time, we're also making efforts in Nigeria and Kenya and other sub-Saharan African markets. Everyone always talks about South Africa and the investments there, but not in other parts of Africa. And it's not just at the student level. There's also an effort to develop the business ecosystem. Right. So we run accelerator programs, which are very, very specific to Africa, for example. We have a Black Founders Fund, which is exclusive to the African continent. So the idea is to help and encourage the startup ecosystem there, so that there are people with ideas are able to get access to technology, access to experts from companies like Google. And in fact, interestingly enough, it's Google for Startups where I work as a mentor is where I first connected with Nafisa from Grameen Creative Lab, right? And as mentioning earlier, that's how I connected with Vanessa from Buffalo Grid. So the idea is to create an ecosystem where it's not just investment in terms of money, but also investment in terms of time and our knowledge and experience. So yeah, essentially that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Alap, and thank you again, Diana. We see also at the Grameen Creative Lab the importance of really when we talk about initiatives, like the importance of the ecosystem behind it, and also that's why we meet in these big events like Social Business Day to bring really the all ecosystem together. And in this sense, Vanessa, if we have to think about really bringing this digital prosperity within the ecosystem, what role, what future do you see for social businesses and social enterprises like yours, and the big role that they play in this ecosystem?
I believe it's fundamental, our participation. And I think from my conversations with Alap and communications with him and other institutions, things like this, events like this are fundamental. But we, as a smaller enterprise, it's easier for us to move faster. We can adapt, we can change our technology, we can adapt our software. We're in a position now where we have some requirements, technical requirements in Bangladesh and different ones in East Africa. But even culturally speaking, and the narrative and the language, it's much easier for us to pivot, turn, and reshape what we're doing. But I also do believe that small enterprises are fundamental. And the more grassroots and the more connected they are to where the solutions are being designed for, the better they will be. We need to give, as Diana was saying, we need to give a chance to everyone. People all over the global south are learning to code. There's solutions coming up. The opportunities are not always there. So, one of the things that my belief is the African proverb, the second part that says, if you want to go far, go together. I think these events, even as myself or us at StreamSpot Plus by Buffalo Grid, it's never giving up of reaching out to people, studying, following what the trends are, attending different conferences, different things, and reaching out to people. That is ultimately the way that we can all learn from one another. Our business is based on aggregating solutions. And so we need to connect with as many people as possible to be able to make selections. But I think it's very important that things like this continue to happen and that we are all able to learn from one another and collaborate with one another.
Thank you. And indeed, I was while you were talking, I was really thinking about the role, for example, of this acceleration program in which Diana is the Kofi Annan Award for Innovation in Africa. And we received over 300 applications from all over Africa, and every single technology and digital idea bringing health equity and really pushing health in Africa was of extreme inspiration also for the network in Europe, for example. So Diana, my question to you then, what really value do you see in this kind of programs in which you are, these accelerator programs like the Kofi Annan Award for Innovation in Africa, in really bringing forward also this extreme capacity from Africa also outside in the world?
Probably the most obvious one would be the funding. Because in as much as you have a great idea, you need the funding to make sure that you get it off the ground. But beyond that is the teaching, as well as the ability to compete at a global scale and to make sure that your idea is tractionable. It's one thing to have an idea of how something will work out, and then to go through an acceleration program and get criticized sometimes about how you think this is going to go, and getting that idea, that global perspective. I think if there's anything we've learned from COVID-19 is that we need the global perspective, and we are very fortunate to live in a world where it's now a global village, and sometimes the solutions to your current issues don't necessarily come from your perspective, but probably from somebody who is in Fiji, might know better about the Zimbabwean situation and solutions that are more applicable to it. So that's definitely an important boost. Another important boost is that it helps you to connect with mentors who have started something and made sure that it has stood the test of time, because you don't want to start a project that's good and then in a few years it crashes and burns. So it was a great opportunity for us as a team to really sit down and rethink what we're saying we want to do. We know what we want to do, but then it's one thing to have a vision, but then to have tractionable steps as well as the timeline. That's the importance of these programs, in my opinion.
Sorry, I was mute. And if you have to give us suggestions to our women entrepreneurs like you, not just in the health sector, to really work in the global south and advancing and solving problems with tech for good, what would that be?
Okay, so my suggestion would be running a creative lab where, I know it's a creative lab, sorry, but running a creative lab where young women apply and then they're told coding for a specific period of time, and then afterwards they have to create a solution to the problem that they started. So they start with the solution, the problem that they want to address in their community. They are taught the skills to do that, and then they have the know-how to then create their own solutions also. So that would be something very interesting, and I know a lot of women would be interested in that. Maybe something more interesting as well, and probably to make it economically feasible, would be maybe to include young women and then make sure that they have marketable skills, and then through that they're linked to internships in various companies that might need their skills as well. So that would be something that would be both economically viable, giving young people, young women especially, the voice and the opportunity to make better decisions because of a better financial stability. So those would be my two suggestions.
Great. And Vanessa, you have anything to add to that maybe?
Yes, I mean, you said at the beginning, you said Mexico. So I am Mexican, but I'm based in Lisbon. So I'm in Portugal at the moment. And so having grown up in the global south and in a more macho culture that you would probably consider in the north, I would say never take no for an answer as a woman. Never. If you believe in what you're doing, we're as capable as men. We're much more empathetic. We make better connections. It's almost research-based and everything. But I would always say to a woman, never take no for an answer and never doubt yourself. There's a lot of women out there that will support you, and there's a lot of men as well that will support you and that will aid you in your journey. So not to be afraid to ask for help either.
Great. Thank you so much. I know, Alap, if you have any more last comment from a tech leader perspective and an organization, if you have any suggestions to the social business entrepreneurs out there and to the people listening to us on to bring forward their tech for good social business ideas, or any final comment.
No, I mean, listen, we've heard of multiple examples in the past few minutes, and you stated at the top of the session, right, that both tech and non-tech companies are seriously working towards, an equitable, inclusive, and accessible technologies, catering to next billion users, novice internet users, new internet users, however we want to kind of define them or address them. Only one call out from our experiences is that we shouldn't try to oversimplify the way we try to address them, right? We need to evaluate what these users need, deeply understand their needs and aspirations, and essentially design for those use cases. So that's the only call out. Treat them as any other user, but at the same time, try and make sure that you cater to this user segment specifically. I completely echo everyone else's points. That's it from me.
Thank you, Alap. And meanwhile, if you see in the chat, Vanessa is sharing all information to check out streamspotplus.com. If you want, Diana, you can also share about Vaxi Global and your contacts for the people who would like to learn more from you. If we don't have any other comments from our backstage or from our attendees, I do see some questions from Nafisa. Are there initiatives to educate the next billion users about data privacy and protecting their digital presence? Do you think this is needed? Maybe I divert this question to Alap.
Listen, there are continuous efforts to educate users about data privacy, user rights, how to, how they can safeguard their information online. On our platforms, we've given multiple user controls where users can actually go and actually decide what information gets shared. And what information doesn't get shared. But yeah, I mean, the effort on data privacy, so essentially user data and safeguarding user data is an ongoing initiative at Google and across much of the tech industry in general.
Great. And also on this one, for sure, like if you have any materials that you want to share, we can definitely share with the audience as well. So it was, I mean, this is a conversation that we only touch very briefly with snapshots in 35 minutes, but we could, I think, really discuss for hours. We keep we're also always discussing these matters with people in this panel, and we will continue conversations also at the end of the year. There's going to be the Global Social Business Summit. We will have a huge focus on digitalization and tech for good. So further details will be shared. But for now, I think we can leave the last session of today really with this message that you said, Vanessa, really bringing how can we bring digital prosperity, so changing also the narrative in this sense, and stop talking about digital divide but really talking about digital prosperity, and how can this not only improve the access to connectivity but also really empower communities, and how can we work together as an ecosystem to further bring these digital prosperities. And with this message, I think we can close the last session of today. I don't know if Professor Yunus or Robert, you have further comments.
Thank you. Everything went very well. The last session was concluded in an excellent way. So now, Aziz, can you close it up?
I think we're going to take a picture and then Robert has some announcements.
Okay. Thank you, Maria, and all the participants.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Smile.
Okay.
Aziz is taking the photograph.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Good night to everybody.
Thanks, folks.
Okay.
I think Robert is going to say something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Robert?
Yes, definitely. So I just want to thank you for making it till the first day. And we want to thank you all for making it through this day. I just wanted to give a recap of what happened today in terms of the sessions that we had. So we had 6 sessions today, and we got speeches from His Excellency Jose Ramos Rota, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate and President of East Timor, Thomas Bach, President of International Olympic Committee, amongst other dignitaries, luminaries, and academics. Professor Mohamed Yunus really set the tone for today by calling on all of us to move from fear and greed to a love and sharing. Indeed, greed civilization is going to destroy us. Lastly, I would like to thank all the participants for making it to be with us throughout the day. A very special thank you to the YSBCs that were able to organize physical events. Makerere University Business School, Kampala International University from Uganda, Catholic University from Zimbabwe, and Abomi Kalavi University from Benin. To all the dignitaries, luminaries, experts, academics, and speakers in the various plenary sessions, thank you for your time and giving us insights on how we could be able to move to a more new civilization. To Professor Mohamed Yunus, we are really grateful for making this possible, and this on the 12th year. Thank you for always challenging us to give our very best. To the partners that made this possible, Yunus Center, Grameen Creative Lab, Yunus Environment, Yunus Social Business, YY Ventures, YYF, and all the other partners that I might have missed, a big thank you for making this work. To the technical team behind the scenes, I want to thank you for making this possible. And lastly, I'd want to thank my co-hosts for making this possible, Prometheus Siddiqui, Lamia Hafiz, Monica Mureriwa, and Zinat Islam. Tomorrow, we have exciting sessions lined up for you. Please be sure to join us. Our programs begin at Dhaka time 12:15, East African time 9:15, and UTC 16:15. Thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to see you tomorrow.
See you
Bye-bye.
tomorrow. Bye-bye. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.